אני מזמינה את דוקטור אולגה גולדין, מנהלת מערך הספריות והמידע, להגיד מספר מילות פתיחה.
בוקר טוב, I will move to English. Good morning, everybody. As usual, Sarit is stealing all the introductory sentences from me. So I will just repeat in 2 or 3 sentences that we are very glad to continue our series of professional lectures and meetings. And we have now the third meeting in our second series. It will be a very interesting and important subject of academic writing. And Noam, please, can you mute yourself? And we have today two very good guests and lecturers, and I will very briefly introduce them. So it's David Elek, Brill Sales Manager. David, where are you?
I'm here. Shalom.
Okay. Shalom, we cannot see you because
hang on.
We can see your video. Yeah. Okay.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And, and our second lecture is Elisa Perotti, Associate Editor at Language and Linguistics. So I wish you all a fruitful and useful and interesting day or several hours. And I hope that you will after this meeting, we'll have lots of tips and knowledge and information, and we will see your excellent papers in our peer-reviewed journals. So good luck and welcome our lectures. David, please, you can share screen.
Okay, thank you, Olga. Thank you, Sarit. Welcome to the third lecture of the second series. Is that right?
Great. Exactly, you are right.
Super. So you had a few lectures before. I hope we will not cover exactly the same ground, but I'm sure there will be some ground that is common from all publishers, but we will see. I'll share my screen with you now, and we'll take it from there. So the title of the talk is How to Publish with a Scholarly Publisher. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Great. So actually that's the title of the talk, but it should really be how to successfully publish with a scholarly publisher, because it's not enough to publish with a scholarly publisher. You want to be successful with your publication. So this is my agenda. What we'll do today, first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about Brill. Brill is the publishing house where I work and Elisa works. It's a very old publishing house based in the Netherlands. Then why publish? How to publish a journal article. Then book publishing, from moving from your dissertation to a book. Peer review. It's a little bit about publishing ethics, and a short mention on open access publishing, which may be the future of publishing or part of the future of publishing. Now, what this talk will give you some tips, just handy tips on why, what, where to publish your journal article or book, what to do, what not to do, how to publish your PhD thesis as a book, how the peer review process works, and what the mechanics of this process are from our perspective, the publisher's perspective. What this talk will not give you, it's not an advertising promotion for Brill. Of course, we would love you to buy Brill books. In fact, you already do. Bar Ilan already buys almost all the Brill books and journals, but it's not an advertising pitch for Brill. It's not a shortcut to publishing with Brill. And it's not going to be any direct help with your own paper or any help with English language editing or something, or translation or anything like that. Tips on how to publish, which you can use generally with Brill or with any other publisher. So a little bit about Brill, just to give you some historical perspective. Brill was founded in 1683, which is now 338 years ago, at the University of Leiden in the Netherlands. And Leiden is like the Oxford or the Cambridge of the Netherlands. And Brill's original publications followed the interests of the scholars, which was very much in the humanities, Oriental languages, biblical studies, classical studies, theology, Hebrew, and Arabic studies. And if you can see the little cupboard at the bottom, the Aron HaKodesh of the Brill, of the Leiden Library, it contained all the valuable and sacred scriptures in Hebrew and Arabic and Ethiopian and so on. And this is what the scholars were studying in those days. And that tradition has continued today. Brill is a publisher in the humanities, social sciences, and law, with a very small science publishing program. In fact, the science program is limited to animal biology, a very small one. So we're not a classical STM publisher in any way. Humanities, we publish everything from African studies, Jewish studies, literature and linguistics, media studies, Middle East and Islamic studies, religious studies, philosophy, and so on. Then we have social sciences, and we're a very strong publisher in law, in both international law and human rights and humanitarian law. These are the areas we publish in. We have a few offices worldwide. Brill is a small publisher. It's not one of the giants of the publishing world, but it's a small publisher employing something in the region of between 150 to 200 people. The main head office is in Leiden, with the secondary office in Boston in the US, and smaller offices in Germany, China, and Singapore.
Hello.
We publish a number of different types of format. We publish about 1,200 new books each year, of which they are all available online as well, of course, as ebooks. More than 300 journals, reference works, such as the Dead Sea Scrolls or encyclopedias, dictionaries, bibliographies, and primary sources. Primary sources are manuscripts and historical documents that are...
David, I'm sorry to disturb you. I got a request that they barely can hear you.
Oh.
If you can raise your voice a little bit.
Okay.
And on.
I don't know about that. If I can raise the voice, let's see.
Actually, I hear a very good. Maybe it's the problem of volume of a specific person. Just to check, because it's excellent. I cannot see any problem.
I'll make the microphone volume a bit more, if it's possible. No, I can't seem to do that. It doesn't work.
But I think most of us do not have this problem.
Okay, how many people have got the problem?
We see in the chat that there is no problem for many people. No problem, okay. No problem. So I think it's the problem at specific person who asked. So I suggest to check volume, sound volume.
Okay, so may I ask the person with the problem to check, because everyone else seems to be okay. There are 82 participants in the meeting, so most people are okay. I can't really talk any louder than this, and I can't talk nearer the microphone because I'm already very near the microphone. So if you're having problems, please check your own local system. I'm sorry, we can't do any more. Thanks. So I'll continue. So there was the products and the formats that Brill publishes in. Like I said, everything is available in print and online. Bar-Ilan is already using many resources from Brill, so I don't need to go into a list of things that we're using. And of course, we're also already publishing a lot of academics from Bar-Ilan. As I mentioned, almost all content from Brill is online. Since 2006, which was the year Brill launched its online platform, almost everything is available in both print and online formats. You may be asking yourself, well, Brill is a humanities publisher, so the older material is still very interesting and relevant. Why isn't that online? The answer is we are working on it. We are doing a retro digitization program right at this minute, and we are planning on digitizing. We are digitizing already back files of books, and the journals have already been digitized. So we're looking at digitizing our incomplete book archive one day. So about Brill Publishing side now, Brill employs 25 publishers or acquisition editors like Elisa, who has joined the call. And these 25 people develop the publishing list and commission new projects in 24 main subject areas, which you've already seen. Their responsibility is to build and maintain a network of authors and editors. Of course, a lot of this is done through the internet and email, but in the old times before Corona, we used to travel a lot and meet people face to face. Let us hope soon we'll be doing that again, meeting you all face to face. And the editors also appoint and oversee editors and editorial boards of journals and book series, and of course, keep up to developments in the field. So why publish? Well, you have an obligation as a scientist, as a researcher, to exchange ideas globally. It's part of your raison d'etre. And publishing is one of the necessary steps embedded in this research process. So you should publish to present new and original research, to rationalize the research that's already been published, to review the field, or maybe summarize a particular subject. And what you should publish should advance knowledge, not repeat it. You shouldn't publish duplications of previously published work or work which is not reaching an acceptable conclusion. At the end of the day, you need a good manuscript to present your contributions to the scholarly community. And what is your own personal reason for publishing? Well, it might be to maintain tenure, to get funding, to get promoted. It might be to impress your neighbors, your family. It might be because you have a passion for research in a particular area. Well, editors, reviewers, and the research community don't actually care about these reasons. They want to know what you need before you can publish. Is you need to know the background material. You need to read broadly, know what's going on in your field, and identify gaps in the knowledge. And there is also a direct relationship between the number of chapters and articles downloaded by a researcher and the number of articles published. The more you read, the more you have access to, the more you can produce more and better research output. If you have a low amount of content available, a low amount of papers being produced. Now, Bar-Ilan has got a very extensive library and many agreements, either individually or on the consortium level, with key publishers in the various fields. Not all universities are as privileged Bar-Ilan to have access. That is why Bar-Ilan is publishing a lot of good quality research, and institutions in countries that are not financially or infrastructure-wise that well organized do not publish. Why publish in English? Well, the international language of scholarly communication and science is English. And that's why we use English as today has become the language of the world. Just a moment. Something is blocking the screen. Okay, excuse me. So there we go. Why publish in English? If you, well, I don't think we need to explain why to publish in English. I think that's fairly clear. Why do publishers exist? That's a reasonable question. Why don't you just do some research, write an article, put it up on the university's server or preprint server or repository and let the world find out about it. Well, publishers have existed for several hundred years to provide a kind of a registration and quality assurance to show that the work is authentic, to review the work, to rigorously review the work, then to disseminate the work, to share it and spread it around, to publish it, to make it available. There are different types of publisher. There are the commercial giants. You may have had one or more of these giving you talks already, Elsevier, Springer, Wiley. I myself used to work for Springer for 15 years. It's a huge publishing house. And these are the giants of the business, if you like. Then there are the university presses, Oxford University, Cambridge University, University of Chicago Press. Then there are smaller commercial publishers. Brill is one of these, De Gruyter, Sage. Sage is a bit larger, but these are smaller commercial publishers. And then there are society publishers, the Institute of Physics, the American Mathematical Society, the American Chemical Society. All of these different organizations publish, but they are set up in a different way. Some are for-profit, some are not for-profit. They are run differently, but they all follow the same principles. Whether you publish in a Elsevier journal or a Brill journal or a book through De Gruyter or Brill or Springer, the process is broadly similar. This is a brief timeline of scholarly publishing history. Now, I will share my presentation with Sarit when I've finished, and she can distribute it to you, so you don't need to make notes. I'll send a copy around. And I won't read through this whole timeline, but suffice to say, in 1660, the Royal Society of London was founded. And in 1665, the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society were first published, which is supposedly the first peer-reviewed journal. And Brill was founded in 1683. So it stretches way back. Nature published its first issue in 1869. Elsevier launched its first international journal in 1947. And the Public Library of Science was founded in 2003. Just a few highlights in the timeline. The research cycle, the research life cycle is fairly similar, whether you're performing a scientific experiment or writing a humanities article. You have to have ideas first, partners, write a proposal, then you get into the research process, which may involve lab work or may involve interviewing or traveling and visiting sites, and then finally publication. Here's an overview of the process from a publisher's perspective. Pre-publication involves things such as acquisition and commissioning.
What? Nonsense?
חברים, אני מאוד מבקשת לשמור על פתיחת המיקרופונים, זה באמת מאוד 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 מפריע, אז בבקשה עכשיו כל אחד תסתכלו על האייקון של המיקרופון שלו ותוודאו שזה סגור, שזה במיוט. Sorry, David.
Yeah, no problem. I'll continue. So pre-publication involves various things like acquisition, proposals, peer review, and so on. Then there is publication. Brill publishes the book or the article. Then the post-publication section, which could involve promotion and marketing. We'll look into all these areas later. And reviews and sales. So there's a whole process. It's quite a lengthy process. The process is similar whether it's a journal article or a book. First of all, you make a proposal, then there's an initial response, review, revision. It may go on several times, rejection or acceptance, polishing, and then editing. There are different types of publication. You may be a researcher in a particular field, and you need to find the right type of publication that suits your particular research you're working on at the moment. It may be a journal article, it may be a magazine article or a literature review, book review, it may be a working paper, or it may even be a book. Now, should it be a book or an article? It depends on the type of research. Workload constraints, but don't forget publisher requirements as well. And the publishing timeline will be significantly longer for a book than an article. Now, from submission to publication could take from between 3 to 12 months. After the manuscript is submitted, the editor may rapidly reject it. You get a quick answer, in which case you need to rewrite it, or it may be sent to peer review. And this process goes through a loop and may be revised several times before it's finally published. For a book, sometimes it can take a couple of years from the initial proposal to the actual final publication. Now we'll look into journal articles. Now, first of all, you need to choose the correct journal. Now, if you're publishing in African Studies, you don't want to publish your research in the Journal of Islamic Manuscripts. You need to find the right journal. So you need to do a bit of research. You need to talk to the library. You need to talk to your peers, search the web, find out which is the right aims and scopes of a particular journal in which to publish your work. You need to choose the most suitable journal for your article. Now, if it's the first article you're publishing, you're unlikely to be accepted in the top journal of the field. So you may need to look a little bit lower down. You may want to look into a multidisciplinary journal or a niche journal. Do you want to write an article for a specific journal, or do you want to find a journal for your article? Now, assessing the best journal for your article, assuming you're doing the research, you're in the process of writing it, you want to choose a particular journal. What is the readership and usage of that journal? Do your peers read it? Does your library have a copy of it? Do you have access to it? Who's the editor? Who's on the editorial board? All of this information is freely available on the internet. Who else publishes in the journal? Is it published by a publisher that's strong in the field? As we've seen from the different types of publisher before. Is it a local journal? Is it national? Is it international? Is it a peer-reviewed journal? And how long will the peer review process taking? And is it listed in Scopus or the ISI citation database? And how often is it cited? All of these things will determine which journal you want to apply for. Most journals are available in online and in print. What are editors looking for? Well, a journal editor will want that your paper stands up to peer review, that it's robust, that it offers strong arguments, that it offers original research, that advances the field in some way, that's relevant and interesting to the journal's readership. And it's got to be in clear and concise English. Now, that's not a problem for you, I'm sure, but in some countries, English is not as widely used and widely spoken. And there are numerous translation services that have sprung up to help people correct their English before submitting it into the journal process. Now, when you've chosen the journal, have a look at the previous papers to get a feel for what is accepted, the aims and the scopes, contact the editor. What does your own research contribute to the field? Now, it's quite handy to ask a colleague to read a paper prior to submission as well, or several colleagues. To prepare the manuscript, very carefully read the guidelines. The number of times papers are rejected because they haven't conformed to the actual style and usage of the manuscript guidelines from a journal is numerous. You need to write an abstract. Spelling and grammar, it's got to be in good English, as we said, double-spaced and single-sided. The references should be in the bibliography, not too many self-references. If you're including photographs, tables, and pictures, make them all present and place them in a separate file. Check that they're all numbered and refer back to the text, and make sure that they've got copyright clearance as well. What not to do: don't try to boil your whole thesis down into one article. Do not put the article on your website first. A very big no-no: don't send your article to more than one journal at once. Obviously, don't plagiarize, and don't repeat the same article with small changes from the previous publication. Now, here are some reasons why articles are rejected. Professor David Phillips, the editor of the Oxford Review, offered 10 reasons why articles are rejected. Well, the article was not ready. It's only a draft. Article is too narrow in scope, poor English. Manuscript is poorly prepared. It's too short or it's too long. Article has been submitted to the wrong journal. It's nothing new in the research. Well, it's under-theorized, under-contextualized, and it's not a proper journal article. These are 10 key reasons why articles are rejected. Now, rejection is just one process along the pathway of being published. You shouldn't take the rejection personally as the personal rejection, because prestigious journals only accept 20% of submissions. That means 8 out of 10 articles submitted to a top journal are actually rejected. Very few papers are accepted without any revision. It's very unlikely that you write an article, especially if you're an early career researcher and it's your first or among your first articles, you send it in. It's very, very rare that it won't be sent back and you won't be asked to revise it. Always try again and listen to what the editorial boards say. Do ask people for comments, feedback. Well, to make your name known, you can collaborate with your supervisor or a colleague, present at conferences. Well, there aren't many of those at the moment, probably virtual conferences. But journal editors, like the people from Brill who go to these conferences, are actually on the active lookout for good papers. Make good posters and talk to these journal editors. Create your own website. Why not? And now book publishing, from dissertation to book. Let's just look at a couple of differences between journal article submissions and book proposals. A journal article will be evaluated by an editor-in-chief or an editorial board, managing editor, whereas a book proposal will be evaluated by an acquisitions editor at the publisher themselves. A journal article will be forwarded for peer review if it's deemed interesting and not rejected. A book proposal, if it's deemed interesting, will be forwarded to a series editor or an editorial board for evaluation. And then if that's accepted, they will request a full manuscript, and that book manuscript will be sent out for peer review. Now, many people think they can publish their PhD thesis as a book, which is fine, but there needs to be quite a bit of work done on the thesis before it can be published as a book. There are a few small tips, like remove all references to the dissertation. Do you really need that introductory chapter? Update the bibliography, copyright permissions. These are small things which need to be changed, but it's quite a major process publishing a PhD thesis as a book. Of course, many do get published, but it's not that straightforward, because a book proposal needs to be created first of all, and the proposal should contain a 1 or 2 page overview of the work and its description of its contribution to existing scholarship. And you will need to explain how you plan to change, how you plan to amend your doctoral thesis and turn it into a book. Just sending in your thesis will not be considered as a manuscript. If you send in your thesis and say, are you interested in publishing this as a book, it will most likely be rejected. You'll need to prepare a table of contents, a summary of each chapter, and you need to really have a go at indicating the length of the project, how many pages the book will be. Brill books, as a general rule, should be at least 80,000 words long, including footnotes, bibliography, etc. A good book proposal will include a rationale for the book, why it's needed, the unique selling points, a clear outline of the table of contents and chapters, as I've already said, the book's relation to existing research, where it fits into the field of research at the moment, a statement on the readership, a brief CV, and a sample chapter. The first draft should include the table of contents, all the chapters, including introduction and conclusion, front matter, bibliography, figures and tables if necessary. You should not put an index in the draft manuscript because there will be still changes and shuffling around of page numbers and so on. Now, this manuscript should have been spell checked and copy edited. Brill will reject a manuscript if it's not written in good enough English and hasn't been spell checked and copy edited. You are the person responsible for this. You cannot expect the publisher to do this work for you. So it's a good idea to start the copy editing and spell checking early on. Well, there are quite a lot of resources on how to publish with Brill on our website, Publishing Books with Brill, and there are all kinds of tips and advice about how you can prepare the drafts and promoting your book and all that. That's all on our website. Now, when the manuscript has been accepted, it goes into the production process. It's handed over to our editorial and production department. As I already mentioned, the manuscript needs to be as clean as possible, written in good English. We have a team of experienced in-house production editors, one of whom will be assigned to you to help you through the process. Now, even before the book is published, the marketing of the book begins. We advertise the book on our pages, an announcement to trade partners and libraries quarterly in our newsletters, which you also receive at Barilan. So the promotion starts even before the book is published. Once it is published, we make sure it's visible at conferences and we will facilitate book reviews. In normal times, we exhibit in more than 150 publishing conferences worldwide. You can and you should, of course, promote your own book. No one's a better advertisement for a book than you yourself who've written it. You can download a PDF flyer from Brill and share it with your colleagues. You can link the book's website to the department website, mention it in talks, share links through social media, add a link to your email signature, create a personal website. You can even write a Wikipedia article about your scholarship and subject information. So many scholars already have a Wikipedia entry, so why not you? Now, a few slides on the peer review process. What is peer review? It's an academic system for vetting the quality and relevance of academic publications. There is a huge review network in place already, and it takes about 2 to 3 months for books and 4 to 6 weeks for articles to be peer reviewed. Usually it's done on a double-blind basis, meaning that you don't know the reviewer's identity and they don't know your identity. You send it in, the editorial board will send it to a reviewer. You don't know who's reviewing your book or article. They don't know who you are. It keeps it impartial. And it may be done by the board or an external reviewer. Why peer review? What's the key to the system? What's the need for peer review? It's to keep the quality high, impartiality. Your manuscript should reflect research standard and be judged suitable for the research community can examine your work. And so discoveries get correct accrediting. Peer review sometimes feels like you're swimming in a sea with sharks, it can feel that way. It's a rigorous process. 2 external experts review your work. They report to the editorial board. And after 6 weeks, in many cases, your work is declined. So you will then have to go through the process again. It's a rigorous process, but it's necessary. A peer review does improve your manuscript. It's like going through a series of revisions, rejections, and finally you see in the green little pie chart, the small green bit, acceptance. Very few papers are accepted without revision. Rejection and revision are integral to the peer review process, to fine-tune and to improve your work, your article, your book. Reasons for rejection, we've already mentioned reasons why articles are rejected, but reasons specifically related to peer review rejection are failures to state a hypothesis, not answering the hypothesis, contradictions within your manuscript, a rambling discussion, inconsistent uses of terms, and conclusion that's not supported by the data. Just some of the reasons for rejections. Now, how do you respond? There is a process in which you should respond to the revision and rejection from the peer reviewers. First of all, be polite and respond to all the comments in a letter. Make it easy to see the changes when you resubmit your article or book. Refer to line page numbers using different font and text highlights. You can disagree with the reviewers, but you need to provide evidence. And it's very important to comply with deadlines. If they say resubmit within 3 weeks, then you must do it. Now, after the peer review has been done by a book editor, the manuscript is accepted. The acquisitions editor from Brill will notify you of your decision, and the publication will be formalized, which means you sign a publishing contract for a book manuscript or a consent to publish for journal articles. And then we'll go into things such as delivery date, copyright, permission, royalties, and so on. Then Brill's marketing and sales department take over with promotion, targeted marketing, targeting in mailings and emailings, specific user groups, libraries, and so on, social media conferences. Of course, you can view the usage of your book. We can supply you with data on the online usage of your particular book. Now, a few words about publishing ethics. Well, obviously in science publishing, falsification of results, it happens. There's more and more material being published from all over the world. And some people try to falsify results, and when they get caught out, they get caught out, but it's becoming more and more. Plagiarism. There have been a number of high-profile cases of people who have written doctoral thesis who have been caught out because of plagiarism, duplicate submission, conflicts of interest. These are among a number of ethical issues in publishing. The international scientific ethics have evolved over centuries, are commonly held throughout the world. There isn't a national variety of scientific ethics. There is a single standard for science and for the humanities worldwide. And problems are on the rise globally. More and more being published, more and more pressure on researchers to publish, and then there's more and more people taking shortcuts. It's tempting to take the shortcut, but it has long-term consequences. Plagiarism is considered a serious offense by your institute, by editors, and by the scientific community. And it may result in academic charges. It will certainly cause rejection of your paper and hurt your reputation in the community, in the scientific and research community. One of the most common forms is inappropriate or inadequate paraphrasing. That means stating someone else's ideas. Well, not copying them, but you're just recycling someone else's ideas. What is acceptable paraphrasing? Well, first of all, understand what the author means. Never copy and paste. Think how the ideas relate to your own work and compare your paraphrasing with the sources to see whether you've changed it sufficiently, whether the meaning of the source is retained, and do get colleagues to check it as well. Because what happens is, if an article is retracted, it doesn't look very good. For example, here is a case of an Elsevier article which was retracted. The article is left up there, but with big red writing on it saying retracted, because it's virtually identical to the previously published article. Someone has basically copied an article. It won't be removed from the platform. Everyone who downloads it will see the reasons of retraction, and that person's career is severely harmed through this process. Now, some rights are retained by the author. You may, if you have written a journal article and you've published a journal article, you may make copies. for your own personal use or for classroom teaching use. You may make copies and distribute them to research colleagues for non-commercial purposes. You can put preprint versions on the internet website. And you can put an author manuscript on your own website. What you can't do is to put the published article on your website or on any other website. The publisher published article has to remain on the publisher website. Now, there are now programs such as Turnitin and Crosscheck, which are automatically searching through journal articles and can identify very accurately plagiarized articles. Most universities now have access to this type of software. A big no-no is multiple submissions, because you're wasting time. You're wasting the editor's time if you submit your article to more than one journal at the same time. If they find out that you've submitted it to another journal, they'll just put a stop on the whole thing because it's really considered unethical. You should not send your manuscript to a second journal until you've received the final decision of the first journal. That's why it's so important to choose the right journal to send it to. Make that choice, work with that in mind, and only when they've rejected it can you send it to a second journal. Finally, some words about open access publishing. What is open access? Well, it's a response to the ever-increasing cost of journal subscriptions. Journals, particularly in the sciences, journals can cost many thousands of euros or dollars for a single year's subscription. I'm happy to tell you none of the Brill journals are that expensive, but we barely publish in the sciences. But journal subscriptions have been going up year after year for the last 30, 40 years. A new business model has come up to shift from the journal subscription to the author pays model, and that is open access. So the cost of the publication is, instead of being gathered from subscribers, it's incorporated into the research funding. All the other mechanisms and peer review are maintained. So all the publishing processes are as they were for a subscription journal, but the business model is different. These open access journal articles or open access books are freely available to all. The payment is at the point of publication. There are different types of open access. Again, I won't read through all of these, but it goes from gold, green to black OA. So a gold open access is the author pays the article processing charge to a publisher who makes the article content available for free. And that could be a book or a journal article. Brill has quite a number of, and a growing number of open access journals, articles, open access articles and subscription journals and books. 220 plus open access books. It's now nearer 300. 15 journals which are completely open access, and 2 reference works. Well, open access can reach a much wider audience. If it's freely available, more people will read and download it. And particular funders, such as the Wellcome Trust and a number of other funders, now require the research that they're funding to be published through open access. So that's the end of my talk. As you can see, authors, yourselves, and publishers are in a mutually dependent relationship. We rely on you writing good articles and good books to provide content, which we then publish. And you rely on our published material to read and find out what other people are working on in your area of research. As I said, I will share a copy of this presentation afterwards with Sarit, who can distribute it all to you. At this moment, I'd like to ask if you have any questions.
David, there is one question in the chat. What about submitting a book manuscript to many publishers? You generally don't get an answer from all the publishers, and in the meanwhile, time runs.
Yes. is specifically talking about a book manuscript.
I'm sorry?
Are you specifically talking about a book manuscript?
Yes, it's a book manuscript.
So then I will ask my colleague Elisa to answer your question. She is right. That's actually her job, is to review and edit book manuscripts. Elisa?
Please don't do that. Don't submit to several publishers at the same time, because that's considered unethical. And actually, one of the things that we ask every time that we receive a proposal or a book manuscript is for the exclusivity and to have the first choice on the manuscript. So
how much time is well to wait for the next one? Because we don't always get an answer from a publisher. No, thank you very much, we're not going to publish it.
Well, my suggestion would be, first of all, to prepare a proposal and send it before the manuscript is ready. So you already sense what publisher would be interested in your book.
So a proposal can be sent to many publishers?
No, wait a second. David, could you kindly stop the presentation, because I cannot see the person I'm talking to. Oh, okay.
Hello, it's me.
Good morning. Yeah, now I can see you and I can focus on something. No, it's possible, but you need to retract your proposal before sending it to another publisher. So please, the idea is send it just to one publisher at the time. And if you see that, for example, please give us a break, like give us at least 1 month for assessing it, or 6 weeks, that would be even better. And if you see that it takes too much time, send a withdrawal email. But please don't send it to several publishers at the same time, because that causes many problems often. For the simple reason that there is a whole process of assessment that you may not see, but might already have been started. So what in my work, first of all, I should say that I'm not an acquisitions editor, as David kindly said. I'm an associate editor, and I'm the person that takes care of all the proposals that are submitted, and I'm basically the middle person that takes care of the communication between the author and the editorial boards and the acquisitions editor and so on. So there is a whole assessment process, and what I usually do, I always get back to the author first, saying, I received it, I'm going to process it. And there are cases actually that the acceptance or the rejections comes within the same day. That happened to me very often. I know that there are other, especially bigger publishers, that might take longer, probably also because the number of submissions and of proposals that they get is much higher than what we get. But still, what I know about Brill and about also my colleagues working in other departments is that we really we really value the contact with the author. So we really try to have a dialogue with them. So the ideal would be, first of all, to prepare a proposal, a book proposal, and send it to a publisher. If they get back to you, they might ask you to please submit also a sample chapter or 2 and the full table of contents. And after that, if you see that the evaluation is taking too long, just send a withdrawal email and say, sorry, it's taking too long, I don't have so much time. And then we stop working on it, because otherwise it's really a lot of work. And still, this is not optimal, because we already invested quite a lot of work and time in it. So please be very careful and just really let the publishers do what they can do best.
Okay, thank you very much.
Concerning a book manuscript, that's even more important, because it's not just a small proposal of 3-4 pages, it's an entire book. So that really takes time. And especially with peer review, and we saw it especially in the lockdowns during last year, it might take longer because many colleagues, many peers are actually busy with their own books or homeschooling, or their well, there was a pandemic also going on. So all the we saw actually quite some delay in several parts of the process. But yeah, unfortunately, there are a few things that the publisher really cannot do much, like forcing peer reviewers to submit a review in 4 weeks. So unfortunately, yeah, you're right. There are parts of the process that take a lot of time. But at that point, it's also really important to have a dialogue with your contact person at the publisher. And what we really try to do is to always be, well, never get out of the radar, always be there for you to reply to possible questions. And sometimes it's I don't know, but hey, it's an answer anyway.
Okay, thank you very much.
Joseph, what did you have some experiences in this regard of sending proposals in or manuscripts and?
Yeah, it's in the Spanish-speaking world, not the English-speaking world. Yeah, but yeah, I've sent several proposals and never got an answer. So I don't know how to go on.
Yes.
Either to send too many and try to see what happens, or actually to wait, as Elisa told me to do now.
Yeah, and sometimes send reminders, because it might also be that the email got in the spam, or you know, it's not a perfect process. Even with all the technology and the power of technology we have now, sometimes the firewall hits and hits hard. So send a reminder maybe 1 week after, or just, you know, checking in if people received what you sent, because it happened to me a couple of times, and then it was a matter of rushing towards finding a solution. But yeah, that's not a perfect process, but what I can say from my side, I try to do the best I can.
Okay, thank you very much for the answers.
Thanks.
There is another question in the chat about the cost of publishing a book in open access and in the regular model or traditional model. I guess that the question refers to the costs from the author side. If there are any costs.
Yeah, so there are no costs for publication in say. There is, of course, a fee that we need to charge to process the article or the book in open access in order to recover the costs that come from the publication, the typesetting and distribution, and the logistics and uploading on the website. That there is a lot involved in the publication process. The authors themselves, they can choose, of course, to pay from their own finances, but that's usually not the case. What's most important is to apply for funding for open access. And it's something that we have a dedicated office for that. And they can always get in touch with us, and we can find the best solution, the best compromise. So to assess what they need and what we can do for them. There is a page on our website that's dedicated entirely to open access charges, and the services that we provide. So I can share it in the chat, I think. Just one moment, sorry. And then from this page, they can just browse the entire website and see what the charges are, what's in it for the authors, what's in it for the funders. But usually we don't ask authors, of course, to pay it by themselves. It's the institution by which they work that can provide funding, and we are always most happy to provide also all the documents needed to simplify the process and to help them apply for open access funding. And this is important because, of course, open access research is more available to everybody. It's important also for their career and the exposure that their work gets. So yes, these are general indications, but of course, we try to have tailor-made solutions for all of them. I hope I replied the answer. Yeah, I provided the answer, sorry.
I just need to say maybe that we don't offer for Brill, at least institutional funding for open access in Bar-Ilan.
Yeah, mainly. Of course, if they have,
but not with Brill.
Yeah, if they have a different, let's say, if they have a different type of funding available, also private funding, we are not really looking into it, but we work mainly with institutions. Because we also understand that the fees can be quite high for a single person or a group of people. So no, always try to apply for funding by an institution. Let us know. We can provide documents needed for that. Usually they require, sorry, also a positive outcome from peer reviewers. So yeah.
There are no, thank you. There are no other questions in the chat. Does anyone wants to ask another question before we wrap up? Okay.
So thank you very much.
Can I just add something then before we all leave and we go to our other tasks? I would just like also to suggest to people that want to write a book or a journal article to keep the reader in mind, to make their work usable by others. So keep the reader in mind and make it easy to read as much as possible. That's also what peer review sometimes helps with, is not only about the content, but also about the way the content is presented. And really, if you have any questions, or if you're interested in publishing with Brill and you don't really know this world yet that well, just get in touch with, no problem. It might take a bit longer, as Joseph earlier said, but we really try to get back to you as soon as possible, and providing you with information, or at least, you know, being able to direct you to the correct people or web pages or journals or book series. As yeah, that's it.
I have a quick question to
Sure.
David, or to either one of you. You said that it takes between 6 to 12 months to publish, from submission to publication, right?
Yeah.
Is this time frame relevant specifically to the Brill publication house, or is it in general? Because from what I heard, it could take much longer than that. So I just wondered about it.
David?
Yes, as I mentioned, the book could take a couple of years even. It's just a rough guideline. Journal articles will be generally published quicker than books. Books could take a year, it could take 2-3 years. But maybe, Elisa, you could give a few examples without maybe mentioning any names, but just some practical examples of cases you worked on where it took, how long they took.
I'm just asking specifically about articles, not about books.
About articles, okay.
Yeah.
It really depends also on the article and how much revision is needed for it. Let's say that from the fully accepted, final, copy-edited article, once it gets into production, it's about 8-10 weeks for being published. And we have a couple of journals now. I'm talking about the linguistic program that, for example, publish in continuous article publishing. So you don't need to wait for an issue to be completed before having your work published. Once that is fully accepted, it's already being published on an e-journal. It's just a couple of journals for now. It's the Old World Journal and Heritage Language Journal that we started this year in 2021. So, you know, it also takes shorter for the author to see an outcome to have the article released. And that, I guess, it's also very good when you have to apply for grants or for job positions and so. Considering from the first submission to the final publication, it depends on the journal also, because journals with many submissions might take a bit longer because there is a sort of a waiting list. Yeah, there might be some delay in those cases, but generally, yeah, I think that the timeline that David gave in his presentation, that's quite likely, yeah.
And as Elisa said, it depends on the journal. I mean, if you look at the journal's webpage, the website for the journal, you can find out a lot. Some journals will publish an article before it's been assigned to an issue. So it's a published article, but it hasn't been assigned to an issue or a volume number. And that will be online. Other journals, you might have to wait until the next issue. And if they publish 4 times a year, you'll have to wait for the next available issue. And they may already have a backlog. So they may already have a pile of articles that are going to the next issue and the one after. So your article may have been accepted, but it may still take another 6 months before it actually physically gets published. So it's important to check the journal's webpage and write to the journal editor and get a rough idea from them as to the time. But broadly, the time scale, 3 to 12 months is reasonable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Yes. So thank you, David. Thank you, Elisa, so much for such a wonderful presentation. That's it, and have a nice day, everyone.
And I also want to thank you both. It was really, we will be happy to see you also at our future lectures and presentations. And for all our participants, thank you for joining us. And we will also be very happy to see you at all our events, future events. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you for all.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.